What's happening, people? What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a quick little video with your boy CJ from the Gunners Corner. And we're going to be talking about, listen, what if Arsenal wins the Premier League and goes back to back again? We're going to get into it, folks. I just thought as the season is approaching, it's good to talk about it. It's good to get into these discussions. I think everyone's getting the fever back again for the Premier League and for club football to return after the World Cup. So let's get into it, man. We're going to talk about Arsenal Football Club and where things stand. Before I proceed, people, make sure you please like and subscribe, hype the video, hype the channel up, do what you got to do, tell a friend to tell a friend. As we always say, it really does help us out. We are looking to grow and expand and make some new changes, especially as the new season is approaching. We're going to always look to level up. We are going to be creating an FPL league that you can join. So join our league, win a chance to get a free jersey. By interacting with us and playing in our FPL league, we do think that it'll be a fantastic idea for engagement and so on and so forth. So we will put the link in the description for that. Um, but yeah, people, listen, we are going to be going into a new season, and as Arsenal fans, we have a lot to be optimistic about. We are current Premier League champions, and at this moment in time, you would say we have the best chance to go again. Well, why do I say that? Well, look at the teams around us. I'm going to focus specifically on the big six. There may be some wild cards thrown in there, like your Aston Villas, your Newcastles, and so on and so forth, who, they've been there, thereabouts in previous years. Now, I don't think Newcastle is going to be anywhere near this time around for obvious reasons. Their team and their manager has been dismantled. Um, so let me just focus on the big six for a second and tell you why I think Arsenal has the best chance to go again to retain the Premier League. Manchester City is in a bit of turnover at the moment, right? I'm starting with Man City because they were our immediate challengers last year. They're in a bit of turnover at the moment. Obviously, they've had. Let's not sleep on the key bits to their club that they've lost, right? None more so than Pep Guardiola. He's the one that's made them tick over the last 10 years or so. Four Premier Leagues in a row. He finally got them the Champions League, they won the treble. Pep Guardiola is massive for Man City. And as we saw with Arsene Wenger leaving Arsenal, as we saw with Fergie leaving United, it takes a while to recover from that situation when you're a manager at that club, when the stability is there, when the leadership and the ownership of that manager is in the club is for so long, right? They're engraved in it. They're the heartbeat. They're everything, the heart and soul. Pep was the heart and soul for 10 years at Manchester City. And he has that winning mentality, and he was able to push those players to go again year after year after year to continue to win trophies. And his drive and his level of enthusiasm and passion for the game is unmatched. And if you think about it, he not many managers can do what he's done in world football generally, right? Across multiple leagues. Now, yes, you can say he's gone to clubs in all these leagues that have money and have, financial power and clout. But again, people said he couldn't do it in the Premier League either, and to come into the Premier League, right? How many managers have been at Man City and also haven't been able to do the business, and certainly haven't been able to sustain this level of dominance, right? Pellegrini did all right, Mancini did all right, but eventually they had to go because there was something bigger and better out there, right? They were looking to finally get that Champions League, and City, and sorry, Pep Guardiola was able to do that for them and then some. So his ability to keep that club going and going and going again year after year after year, it's unmatched. It truly is unmatched, and he probably goes down as the best manager along with Fergie in this league. So, which hurts me to say as an Arsenal fan and a lover of Arsene Wenger, Pep Guardiola, I think, is the best manager in the Premier League that we've seen, along with Sir Alex Ferguson. So him leaving is massive. Don't underestimate that. They've also lost experienced leaders like Bernardo Silva, John Stones, and potentially they could be losing Rodri, right? Again, these are big key figureheads in their team over the last few years. Kevin De Bruyne, obviously, we know left last year, and he was probably their best player along with the Rodri. So losing Kevin De Bruyne, right? Potentially losing Rodri, and having already confirmed lost the likes of Bernardo Silva, who was massive for them last season. He turned up in big games as he always does. John Stones, again, an experienced figurehead at the back. He's won it all with them. Losing these kind of players is not easy, right? This is a clear changing of the guard. This is a clear changing of the spine of your team, essentially, and the heartbeats of your team. And certainly if Rodri goes, right, you're looking to go again. They can spend big money on the likes of Elliot Anderson and so on and so forth. But again, these are guys, they're never going to be as good as Rodri, right? Not right now, at least. And um, again, established players in their own right, but they're not engraved in the culture of Man City, and know what it takes to win and to get over the line the way Rodri does, the way Bernardo Silva did, the way Pep did, it's John Stones. So it's a clear changing of the guard over there. It's a rebuild. and Maresca coming in a good manager in his own right, but he's not a Pep, and he's never won the Premier League. So experience speaks for a lot, and which they may be lacking going into this season. That definitely swings things in Arsenal's favor. And City, who are typically our closest challengers year over year, um, again having pipped them to the title already last year, with the changes that they've made over the summer and the turnover there, I think that gives us an advantage over them again. Like I said, having already beat them by a few clear points last season, we can break away from them. Certainly if we get our business right, and I'll talk about the business that we still need to do at the end. But yeah, the losses that City have incurred at this moment in time, I think, put them a little bit on the back foot in terms of going again. They could still do it, of course, but these are the reasons why I think City could still be behind Arsenal and fall just short in terms of the title race. Now, Liverpool as well. Let's go into Liverpool, a recent champion in recent years. Um, Again, turnover is similar for me. They just lost Arne Slot. They lost their manager. Ariel has come in, who's going to be a good manager, I think, for them. He is a good manager. He's done well with Bournemouth, so he can definitely do better with better players and more financial clout. Um, but again, they've had some turnover. Now they do still have the likes of Van Dijk and Allison, so there are a couple still of Premier League winners there. But it's hard to replace a Mo Salah. How do you replace a Mo Salah? Again, similar kind of thing, right? This is a changing of the guard. We've seen the stability in Salah, being a big part of what Liverpool's done and the success they've had year over year over year. They've lost Klopp, obviously we know that. But yeah, to lose Salah, you're losing a couple key bits and key figures in your side that has given you, like I said, that stability and success over recent years, and that's not easy to replace. So you're in a bit of a rebuild there, right? The rebuilding at Liverpool, so much so that they have new players that they bought last season. They have to come back and let's see how they gelled in second season around, right? The likes of Frimpong, the likes of Verts, the likes of Isak, Ekatike. How's this new manager going to get all these new players again to gel that quickly? It can be done, of course, it can be done, but again, it's going to take a bit of a while, I think, for them to fully get going. And does the turnover there, right? They still have issues on their right hand side again in terms of replacing Salah. Who replaces those goals? Even just the quality of Salah on that right wing. How does the Areola, make that big step up from Bournemouth to Liverpool? Now you're at a big club. It's not easy. We've seen the likes of David Moyes try to do the same when Fergie left. We've seen Unai Emery try to do the same when Arsene Wenger left. To make that step up at these big prestigious clubs, coming from mid-table clubs, respectfully, it's not quite the same, is it? And again, the lack of experience on the manager's part could count for a lot, to be honest with you. So he's got a lot of work to do to get that team gelling, to get the players integrated, and to fill gaps in not only the defense, because I think they have issues at fullback still, but also on that right side with Salah gone. So it's all about the balance and that new manager. What's he going to do? How is he going to do it? And I think for that reason, I think they would fall just short as well, in my personal opinion. Are they ready to win a league? Not quite sure yet. So that's my thing with Liverpool. Similar to City, it's just the lack of sort of the stability and experience. The turnover there is, I think, would make them fall short as well. Now, Manchester United is an interesting one. They're in the Champions League again for the first time in a while. Um, they had a good run towards the end of last season. They were the form team in the Premier League, the back end of last season. When you look at the second half of it, let's say from January to May. However, Manchester United, listen, Arsenal's been in that position as well, right? Where we've been sort of fourth place, and you think, we just got Champions League, we just got to the top four, and you think Arsenal's going to kick on into a title race. Doesn't quite just happen like that, right? How many years under Wenger, in the Alexis Sanchez and Ozil era, did we just get top four and we got, we thought we were going to be on the up and up? You're thinking you get top four, you get into Champions League football, and automatically the following season, the next progression will be to win a league. Again, that doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen like that, right? Still a lot of work to be done. Man United the season before finished close to relegation zone. Last season, they got into the top four simply because, let's be honest, they played one game a week. They were out of all the cup competitions quite early. When you talk about the League Cup and the FA Cup, they didn't have any European football whatsoever. So you're playing Premier League football once a week. So yes, that their form was admirable. However, like I said, it's one of those things where you have to take all that context into account. How do they now fare with playing extra European games? They would hope to go deeper into the cup competitions. And I think having the extra games, do they have the squad good enough to be able to compete on all fronts and to win a Premier League now, right? I look at their recruitment in the summer and I think, yeah, a couple good pieces there. Tielemans, Santos in midfield to help beef up their midfield. They lost Casemiro. Does that bridge the gap between Arsenal and Man United? Does Man United now, look at them and say, yeah, their team is now ready to win a league when you compare them to Arsenal's team? For me, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like I said, it's a good team, but it looks like still a Champions League top four team. I don't see anybody, that scares me that's world class. And I think, okay, yeah, you're going to go and win a league now because the defense isn't a world class defense. And their forward line isn't a world class forward line. Good forward line, but again, world class. So then you look to their midfield. Bruno Fernandes, we know is world class. I fully admit to that. But the rest of their midfield, they do have somebody. I think they're missing a Rodri type midfielder or a Declan Rice type midfielder, somebody who's strong on the ball, a defensive midfielder who can break a play but also get on the ball and drive the team forward. So I think they lack that physicality, right? Tielemans is good, Kobe Mainu is good, Santos is good, all technical ballers, but is it balanced? Do they have physicality in there? Do they have guys who can get around the pitch? Do they have the mobility to be able to cover ground and complement the likes of their creative players like Bruno Fernandes? So I think there's still a little bit of work to do in that area for them. I don't know if they're going to go and address it, but at this moment in time, I can say I don't think for what they think they're missing, still, I don't think that makes them, title challenge, title winners, let's say. Maybe they could challenge for up to a certain point. They could fall out of a title race by, I don't know, the new year. But again, to win a Premier League is a different level we're talking about, right? And we can say that now, having the benefit of winning the Premier League as Arsenal Football Club being Premier League champions. So yeah, United. And listen, the last thing I'll say about them is we didn't even talk about their manager. The common theme that I've mentioned so far with City, Liverpool, now Carrick being manager at Man United, yeah, the manager is a big thing, and the experience accounts for a lot. The managers now that we're seeing at the top six sides, inexperience at the highest level in terms of winning Premier Leagues and even winning Champions Leagues, right? And Carrick has not even come anywhere near close to any of those things. Obviously, as a player, yes, but it's one thing to do it as a player. Now you have to do it as a manager, and even as a manager, it's one thing to manage once a week in the Premier League with no other extra games. Now you have to manage European games, other cup competitions. Now you're more than just an interim coach. You're now the manager, and you have to, keep players happy, keep players fit. Be a good man manager. You have to manage contracts. Carrick is dealing with a lot, and he's very inexperienced. Now we saw Arteta eventually get to that level after being an inexperienced manager, but it takes time, right? So to Carrick come in his first full season as a proper manager of Man United and win the league, I don't see it. But stranger things have happened. And then we go to the last two. We go to Chelsea and Spurs, and I'll start with Chelsea. They're another interesting one. They will be playing once a week, like Man United did last year, because they do not have any European football. They will be in the cups, so maybe they can make some good cup runs, and that'll give them extra games. But again, they finished 10th last season. Chelsea has had a lot of issues at from top to bottom over recent years. Since Abramovich left, hasn't quite been the same. Yes, they've had a couple of trophies. They won the Club World Cup, they won the Conference League. But a club like Chelsea, I think will be striving for bigger levels of success than that. They'll be, they want to be winning Champions Leagues again. They want to be winning Premier Leagues again. It'll be 10 years as of the turn of the year into 2027. It'll be 10 years since Chelsea won the Premier League. Um, which when you think about what they've been doing since 2004, that's kind of unheard of or maybe even unacceptable for their standards, right? Their new standards. So go 10 years without winning the league, Chelsea, that's something they're going to want to rectify soon. But again, the ownership, the leadership there haven't been able to get it right, whether it's player recruitment, whether it's contracts, whether it's falling out of favor with players, whether it's signing players who are not good enough. They still have a lot of those kind of players on their books. They still have an inflated squad. They still have a lot to do. The money they spent on these players, all the money that's been spent, and it's still, they need more. How does that make sense, right? Their forward line is still sort of questionable. You look at João Pedro and think he's quality, but they still have Delap. What are they going to do with Jackson? They just got rid of Garnacho recently. Pedro Neto, what's happening with him? Gittins is there. There's a lot. Mudryk just came back. There's a lot they still got to do, and there's a lot of work for Xabi Alonso to do. Um, Enzo Fernandez, is he going? Is he staying? Morgan Rogers is a great acquisition. I think we'll put them in good stead for the campaign. And I do think that they will get back into Champions League places. Certainly, if top five is a Champions League spot, I think they'll get back into the Champions League places. Personally, again, one game a week in the Premier League, no European competition. Um, So I think that would be the minimum requirement. They beefed up the back line a little bit. They did lose Cucurella, a big piece, one of the best left backs in the Prem, one of the best left backs in the world, you can say at this moment in time. So that's not an easy replacement there, to be honest with you. But they did bring in Lacroix, French international from Palace, good center back to help beef up the back line there. They'll get Colwill back, who's been out all last season from injury. So again, but when you have the lack of stability there, when you have new manager and player turnover, can you go into your first season, Xabi Alonso, and get the Premier League, bridge that gap between you and the current champions? It's going to be tough. I'm not so sure, you could fall just short. They can make a good run of it, but yeah, it's one of those things for me. I'm not quite sure. Xabi Alonso, I will say, I think is the next best manager out of the ones that we mentioned so far. Areola, Maresca, maybe not unfair on Maresca. Maresca's a good manager, but he's still got some bits to prove. But Xabi Alonso, he's gone to a Bundesliga and Bayer Leverkusen side that's competing against Bayern Munich. Bayer Leverkusen, who has a lot less financial power than these Premier League teams, and he's won, what was it, a treble they won there, undefeated season in the Bundesliga. So, and then they won so yeah, listen, like Xabi Alonso, he's done a lot more with a lot less in other leagues. It didn't work out at Real Madrid, but that can happen to the best of managers. So I think Xabi Alonso's got a pretty credible CV, and he that's a big name as a manager out of all the managers we've mentioned so far aside from Arteta at Arsenal, you look at Xabi Alonso and think his level of success um, up to this point in his career is very respectable. So good manager there. So he could get them doing something, but could fall just short for the league. Now Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham Hotspur is Tottenham Hotspur. I don't even want to spend too much time on this. I do like De Zerbi as a manager. I do. He is a good manager. But again, they finished in the relegation zone last year. They do have players returning from injury who should come back and help them, the likes of Kulusevski and Kudus and these guys, Madison, if they all stay. Did make some good acquisitions in midfield, Fernandez and Tonali. But again, it's just Tottenham Hotspur. I do want to leave it at that. It is Tottenham Hotspur. Listen, I'll say a little bit more to be fair and remove the banter. Spurs, again, going from 17th to winning a league, you just don't see it. You just don't see it unless it's like a Leicester situation. But come on, you don't see that. And again, like the acquisitions they've made, again, are they good enough to win a Premier League now with those acquisitions? There's still more to do. The window's still open. Are they going to win a Premier League, Tottenham Hotspur? With their current side, that side is still not good enough to win a league. It's still got work to do for over years. De Zerbi has he still has time and he still have things that he's got to do and surgery to do on that squad to get them to a level where you can say, yeah, they're going to compete for a Premier League. You know what I mean? So, they lost Romero, which is I think a blessing for them. Losing their captain, who was not really a great captain for them. He is also a liability on the pitch. They signed Van der Ven to a long-term contract. Um, they got Senesi in the Argentinian, and they got Van Hecke in. So yeah, listen, and Andy Robertson, I think, a left back. So some good pieces there that have been done. But again, you're looking at that squad, and you're saying, yeah, you can get into European places again, winning a league. Come on, you just finished in the relegation zone and fought for your lives to get out of there. Not good enough yet to win a league. And De Zerbi again, he got a lot of work to do with that squad. He's a good manager, but he's the level of club he's managed before, Brighton, Marseille, these kind of clubs. It's not the biggest, with all due respect, the biggest of Marseille is a big club, but again, we're talking about clubs that will be, vying for Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues. That level is completely different, and that's the difference between all those managers that I just mentioned and Arteta. Arteta is now a Premier League winner. He's been here, done that year over year over year. The main difference between Arteta and Arsenal and the other big six clubs that I just mentioned is stability, right? That's the main word that we're looking for here, stability. All those other clubs, well, Arsenal will never have a better time to repeat a Premier League than this season because of the lack of stability and the unknown entity of all the other big six clubs around us. All of the other five out of the big six have new managers going into this season, right? Carrick, again, you can say, he did come part way in through last season, but he's going to be in his first full season, Carrick. Maresca just came in, Areola just came in, Xabi Alonso just came in, and De Zerbi just came in. I mean, Arsenal Football Club having just won the league, improving from a position of strength, you'll never have a better chance to do a back-to-back in the Premier League with the other big six clubs around you, lacking that stability at the moment in terms of rebuilding, in terms of turnover of players and turnover of manager. That's like, wow, what an opportunity we have now, right? But we have that stability. We have a lot of our key players on long-term contracts. Some of them are coming up for renewal, like Timber and Rice and so on. But, big players signed to long-term contracts, good cohesion in the group, not too much player turnover in terms of our key players leaving. Our manager is still here, who won the Premier League last season with this current group. A lot of players who are still at a good age into their prime coming into their own are going to get better with another year under their belt. Young players like Max Dowman, another year under the belt, great bright talent coming through, where we have a good squad to go again and go the distance. Um, the only thing that we're gonna do to fail is if we fail ourselves. I think that's I truly in the Premier League alone, I don't think anybody else can beat us if we're on it. We're gonna be beating ourselves. And it'll be because of fatigue and it'll be because of injury if we don't manage our squad correctly. And if let's be honest, if we don't do what we need to do in the transfer window, right? Firstly, on managing the squad correctly, that means Arteta has to rotate better than what he did last season. A lot of players really, I say, sold their soul and fought tooth and nail to win that Premier League, and it came at a cost, right? For Rice, for Saka, for Saliba, it's come at an injury cost and maybe potentially long-term injuries for these players because of how much, they had to really fight mentally and physically to get over the line to get Arsenal that Premier League. Look how many minutes Rice played last season. Look how many minutes Saliba played, and look how many minutes Saka's been playing since he's burst into the team under Arteta. Arteta really needs to work on his rotation and his player management, and I also include Zubimendi in that, who was pretty much burnt into the ground in his first season. There was no real midfield rotation. Zubi and Rice played, almost every game that was important to us, which was pretty much every game, considering we were going for all fighting on all fronts. Those boys played too many minutes, and there was a lack of rotation and a lack of trust in the squad. And I think Arteta needs to improve on that this season. Um, and it goes hand in hand with the transfer window. The transfer window is going to help us improve from that position of strength and to create that distance between us and our competitors, right? And keep those other clubs at arm's length. We need to maintain that, and we need to do that by going into the transfer market. And the first step in the right direction in terms of managing your squad and rotating players is getting other quality players like Bruno Guimaraes in midfield. Great midfield signing. Because of Bruno Guimaraes, I don't think that we need to worry about Rice anymore. I think you can play Bruno Guimaraes instead of Declan Rice at times because Bruno Guimaraes is literally the Brazilian Rice. I say, obviously, this that all action midfielder, that combative midfielder, somebody you trust on the ball, passion, energy, leadership, covers so much ground. He's the Brazilian version of Declan Rice. So he can then like definitely play and hold down that midfield when Rice isn't there. And obviously the mouth-watering prospect of them playing together, I think that elevates your team and brings you to another level that you didn't previously have. Zubimendi is good, but I think again, for the balance of the team with Rice in the six and Zubimendi in the eight, something more of a creative offensive outlet. That's going to change the dynamic of our team because I think we saw last season with Zubimendi and Rice together, it was steady, it was stable, but it lacked a bit of that forward thinking, positive on the ball, get forward, play balls in between the lines, play the balls forward quickly and early to the forwards and to the strikers. It was a lot of sideways stuff and conservative football when those two were playing together, Zubi and Rice. But again, like I said, with Rice and Guimaraes, I think now you're going to see, certainly with Guimaraes, somebody who packs a punch and looks to get the ball forward quickly and, has that incisive pass in him, the forward pass in him. So it's very exciting to see that. And that is the kind of signing I'm talking about when I say we need a player and players now to elevate us, to create that distance and create that gap and maintain that gap between us and our competitors in the rest of the Premier League. That is definitely a level raiser, Guimaraes, to come in and enhance the squad. And I'm excited to see what he's going to bring. But that's not where it ends. I think we need to do more. I think we now definitely, I'm under the impression that we need to go and do something in defense and get somebody in the right side of defense. At the beginning of the window, if you told me that, I would have said, stop focusing on defenders. Let's go in and get all out on our attack. But at this moment in time with Saliba's injury, I don't think you can rely on just a Mascara, young, inexperienced defender, a Ben White who's, his injury issues, and then a Timber who we know is also crocked with injuries as well. That right side of defense is looking light and it's looking shaky. And we can't afford to just wait for Saliba to come back because you can't afford to drop too many points before then. Who knows where we'll be and what position we'll be in the league if you just wait for Saliba, you get complacent, you wait for Saliba to come back, and all of a sudden you're maybe playing catch up and you're chasing your competitors because we've dropped too many points. Our defensive stability was the bedrock of our success last year, and I think we need to maintain that. And like I said, with the concerns and how light we are, we look on the right side of defense at the moment. I think we do need to go into the market and bring somebody of quality and somebody experienced through the door. Now, who you think that is and who you think that might be is another story. We're linked with the likes of Konza and Kwanzaa, two English defenders. Kwanzaa, who plays in Germany, I believe with Leverkusen, and then Konza, obviously of Aston Villa. Now they're both going to command certain fees that will Arsenal want to pay it. Those are a whole other story, right? Jules Koundé is also out there from Barcelona, good experience, French international. So there are players that are out there. There's players that we're being linked with. Um, I just think we have to do something in that area, and most importantly in the attack, right? Not only going back to back in the Premier League, but winning the Champions League is very important to me and means a lot to me. It was devastating to lose that final last year. I want Arsenal to finally get that star above the badge, and I think to go again in the Champions League, you're going to need star quality in the final third. I'm sorry, you're going to need somebody to win you a match when the game is level, the game is tight, 0-0. Who's going to win you that game 1-0 in the 90th minute? Who's going to take the game by the scruff of the neck? We don't have that Thierry Henry type of player. I don't think Saka could be, but we don't know what level Saka's at after his injury and his injury concerns. So he needs help. We're going to need somebody else. Solis is a good player, but he's a squad player. If you told us at the beginning of the window Solis was going to be our solution, I don't think many people would accept that. We know we need a level raiser and a game changer and a difference maker. We need a Bruno Guimaraes in the front three. Somebody we know will come in and raise the level. Who's out there in the market? Not Vinny anymore, that's for sure. And then the next best is Kavicha Kvaratskhelia at PSG. He's not going anywhere. So, listen, it's the club's decision. It's the club, that's what they're in that position for. That's what they're in the job for. That's what they get paid the big bucks for, is to make those decisions and to go out in the market and find a level raiser for us. I think so far it's been underwhelming. If you miss out on Rodgers, or if you don't get Rodgers and don't go all in on Rodgers and don't move for Rodgers early enough because you're holding out for a Vinny Jr., well, you better make sure you get one of them. Two top targets, didn't get either for one reason or another. Now you're left with a few weeks left in the window to try and address that area, which was a priority area at the beginning of the summer. So listen, they have work to do. They better get something done. That's all I know, because I don't think our forward line currently is good enough to win a Champions League, and question marks about if they can do it again in the Premier League with this attack, because we definitely need to have more about us in our attack this season. I don't think we can continue to play like we did last season. That sort of what people call haram ball. A lot of dark arts, a lot of set pieces, yes, a lot of you know just finding a way to scrape over the line. I don't want it to be that uncomfortable this season. I want to see potency in attack. I want to see a good attacking brand of football, fluent football, with difference makers and clinical forwards in the final third, that you know what you're going to get from them 9 times out of 10 when they play. And I need to see that, and I need to see more of that. And if we do that, if we manage to do that and then get one or two of those players over the line and attack before the end of the window, that for me will almost guarantee our status as Premier League winners for 26-27 season. That you just simply have to just improve, even if you improve a little bit on what we currently have, because we won the league with that attack last year. I didn't think was good enough. If you improve and get to something even a little bit better than that, and you've already got a Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, like, just you know what I mean? Like, you put yourself in just such a great position to literally keep your opponents at arm's length. Improve anywhere in that forward line, and we can certainly go again. Absolutely, we can go again to win this league, and just give us something different and give the opposition something different to think about and worry about. So, look, there's still Barcolas out there. We're being linked with Yildiz. Julian Alvarez's future is uncertain. Got to do something. You got to roll the dice. You can't afford to sit and just hope and rest on our laurels and say, we tried. We'll just go again with what we currently have. It'll be a struggle for us. Teams will find us out. You got to do something different. You got to throw up wild cards. I'm sorry. So, look, all in all that to say, our stability, our current status as Premier League champions, our cohesion with a close-knit group who knows each other and has played together for a few years now, and our current manager with the stability of him having won the Premier League and knowing what it takes now, puts us in the best position to go again to win this Premier League. And if we win it again, it'll elevate the club status even more. We're already a massive football club, but what can we do now if we win again and win another Premier League back to back? Where does that take the club to? What level does that take the club to? The haters will be literally in their feelings, in their in will be drinking their tears if we win another Premier League. Because right now, I think the narrative is all, you won this one by fluke. You won it with help from the referees, all this nonsense. If we go back to back Arsenal Football Club, that's massive for the size of our club. We have to make up for lost time. We haven't won prior to 2026, haven't won a Premier League for 20 odd years. Size of our club needs to make up for lost time and rack up the trophies and accumulate the success especially with this group because they're good enough. If we can do that, we put ourselves on a big pedestal, and put Arsenal Football Club as a brand really out there to be taken seriously. And we can absolutely do it. I think we're already the favorites going into the next season. So, look, these are all the reasons why I think if we win it, I think we can win it again. And I think what it will do for the club in terms of elevate the football club globally, I think it's massive to show that this wasn't just a one season thing and that we're here to stay and this can be a mini dynasty. So listen, people, that's my thoughts on it. Excited for the new season. Let's see what happens. Make sure you like and subscribe and hype the video, as I always say. Thank you for being here with us. This has been your boy CJ from the Gunner's Corner, and stay tuned for more content. Lock in as we will see you guys soon. Later. We're out. Bye bye.